يا طالبا للعلم يرجو نفعه اسمع نصيحة ناصح معواني أخلص لربك في أمورك كلها فالمخلصون هم أولو العرفان.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنة إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Usually we'd say it's Laylatul Jum'ah, but it's not. It's Laylatul Sabt. In actual fact, this is a recording, inshallah ta'ala. And we are very excited to have with us on the couch this week a guest all the way from Britain. Alhamdulillah, a person known for his orator skills, his way of putting over something. Alhamdulillah. There's this colleague that teaches with me, and he's just mesmerized because we now 40, Sheikh. How old are you? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Shaykh Muhammad?
I'm very, very well. How are you doing? You okay?
So I think we're a bit older than you, Sheikh, or at least me.
I'm sure it's not. You're younger than me.
Sheikh, if I may, how old are you now currently?
As far as I recall, I'm 39.
13. Oh no, that's not much. That's not much younger than I'm 42, inshallah. So my colleague, he's also a graduate from the Jamia. He's also in his 40s. So some of us get to learn about the younger du'at later than others. So he's been listening to many of your lectures these days, and he's like really, Sheikh, the way the guy puts it over, mashallah, is like really impressed. But barakallah fiqh, and we're so happy to have you, and a warm welcome to South Africa, and more specifically Cape Town.
Jazakallah.
One of my mashayikh used to say the people from the south of every country, this is his theory, the south of any country, they're the most hospitable. I'm not going to put you on the spot there, Sheikh, but
I'm going to disagree with you on that, Sheikh. For the UK, it's well known in the north of the UK is more hospitable than the south. This says there's no khilaf on this issue, Sheikh. This is like agreed upon.
Alhamdulillah. Hayakallah. Sheikh Ashik, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How's things?
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh. Just tired.
Okay.
Rush to get here. Alhamdulillah, we made it.
Educated,
the life of an educator, inshallah. The kids, I almost went crazy today, but alhamdulillah, I made it in one piece.
Alhamdulillah.
And inshallah, we will benefit today, inshallah. We will discuss some matters, inshallah.
Inshallah,
Important issues, inshallah.
Shaykh Muhammad Tamamble, you a graduate from Jamia Islamia. When people Google you, like one auntie told me this morning, I Googled the Sheikh, and predominantly what's on YouTube has to do with with the ghaib, with ruqya, sihar, and you're basically known for that, inshallah. But before we get to that, obviously, there's like a ton of videos speaking about your journey to Islam. But what really stands out for me is the age that you accepted Islam at the age of 14. And in our context, kids don't even worry about religion at 14. Share with us your experience.
Yeah, it was a blessing. It was a grace from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a mercy. And I mean, how I actually came to Islam in summarized form is that I was going through a hard time. I didn't have a great relationship with my parents. I didn't have a great relationship with friends. I had some bad people around me. I wasn't a bad kid. I was doing well in school, but I was really pushing the boundaries of what you could do, like trying to see how close I could get to the line, to be getting kicked out of school and things like that. And that led to a lot of, I don't know, they call it soul searching, like asking yourself, look, what am I doing with my life, and that led me to sort of make a decision to kind of change what I was doing and say, okay, maybe I need to change things around. And I moved school, and that was a natural progression because our schools between the 8th and 9th grade that we swap schools. That's not even everywhere, just certain parts of the UK between 8th and 9th grade you swap. So we swapped school, and in that school I took religious education lessons, and Islam wasn't a big part of the curriculum, but when I heard about it, it really changed my perspective on religion as a whole. I started to think that actually, you know what it is? I used to think that organized religion doesn't really make any sense. I mean, yeah, we respect the fact it's tradition and people do it, and you know, it makes people kind of, it gives people comfort. But I mean, really, I didn't really believe that organized religion really made sense in you know, the sort of that time, this day and age, modern times. And when I heard about Islam, it just totally changed my perspective. And I didn't jump up and say, right, you know, how do you become Muslim? But it made me start to really think. And I think I went through 3 phases. I started off being impressed by Islam, or sort of impressed that there was a religion that made sense. And then I went through a stage of being quite defensive about Islam. So when people would say bad things about Islam, I would sort of be like, you know, like, I don't agree with that. I actually don't think you've understood Islam properly. And then I started to ask myself, well, if you're defending Islam and you really love it that much, what does that make you? Does that even make you a Muslim? And I sort of went back and I started to research it. We, you know, had some kind of internet in those days. It was.
We're looking at 1997, 98.
I you know what it is? I've lost track of the year, you know. But I know it must have been. It must have been maybe a little, even around that, even a little before that.
Yeah, we barely had internet here back then. In South Africa.
Okay.
So in any case, like
we had dial-up.
Yeah, we had dial-up. We had dial-up, and we had like I don't know what it was, Alta Vista in those days, or MSN or something like that.
Yes.
And you know, so I started to research, and it's actually shocking how many people search every month for how do I become Muslim. And variations. Have a look on Google statistics. There are millions of searches every month in the English language. How do I become Muslim? And it doesn't mean millions of people, but there are millions of searches. So maybe the same people are, you know, 10,
Searching
12
all the
times,
time.
but there's a very, very big number of people searching, how do I become Muslim? So I did that. I found some stuff that was true and some stuff that wasn't, because you get a bit of everybody's opinion. You get sort of from all different sorts of angles.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff I found out was kind of strange. Like, for example, I was told that you can't accept Islam without 2 witnesses. So the poor guy that's fallen off a mountain and is hanging there by his one hand.
Yes, look.
Miskeen, I'm sorry, Raqee, you cannot accept Islam at this moment. You need to have 2 witnesses. So I got confused about it. I really did think that I needed that. I didn't understand the whole concept that the witnesses have to be Muslim in any case. Okay. Like, so I basically took Shahada in front of my mom and dad without them really understanding what it was.
Okay.
And they were, of course, Muslim.
What were their thoughts? I mean,
they didn't know what I'd done. I just told them I found something Arabic and this is what I'm going to say to you. And look how I can speak Arabic now. And
okay.
Yeah. I don't think I lied. I just didn't tell them what it was. You know, I said, look, I found some words of Arabic and I'm practicing it, and you know, and maybe they understood. And you know, because I mean, the word Allah, the word Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm sure they had an idea. And so after a while, my mom said to me, like, are you Muslim? And that's where I freaked out. I just panicked. I was like, Muslim, Mom, where have you got this idea from? Muslim, this is crazy. What are you saying? And then after a while, I decided to tell her. You know, I came and I said, yeah, you know what it is, Mom. You know, that day when you said that I'd become a Muslim, I did become a Muslim. And she said, okay, we're going to talk about it. Sit down on the sofa, not a nice, comfortable sofa chat like this, and not a nice, comfortable chat like this, but it wasn't bad. Yeah, okay. She said, look, if you are really serious about this and you really want it, and you really believe it, then we're not going to stand in your way. But we don't want you to turn the house into a battleground. We don't want you to start preaching to us. They came from a background where my grandfather was into sort of preaching.
Okay.
He was into the Jehovah's Witness thing. And
they didn't want that all over.
And my mom was like, look, I do not want that again. No more preaching in the house. And also that and this is actually very good advice she gave, don't tell people about it too quickly. And that advice, I actually completely agree with. You know, if you're not ready to tell people, then, you know, you don't need to be the first thing. You don't need to tell every single person about it until you are a little bit more settled and you have the ability to kind of process it and understand it. So I didn't really take that advice at all. but
So
I
you're
mean,
like
for
the
a while.
Sahabi who went up to the Kaaba and said, look,
No, not quite. Not quite, not quite. But what we did do is I looked for Muslim friends and I started to tell my Muslim friends that, look, I've become Muslim. They were just amazed and they were so happy. And then they tried so hard to help out. But just really, they themselves were only just on the edges of practicing, like
Yeah.
Ramadan was good. Outside of Ramadan, not so good.
Yeah.
Jumu'ah was most of the time.
Yeah.
Like it really was like they were just really on the very edges of practicing. And even when they would take me to other people who were more knowledgeable, they weren't really what we would in any way call by any sort of measure, we wouldn't call learned people or knowledgeable, nobody who had passed any kind of course or any kind of qualification, just people who were a little bit older and maybe had met someone who had taught them something. And then the books were sort of, the language wasn't easy to understand.
I just wanted to say that, Sheikh, you're speaking about research, and for millennials, they don't understand the struggles of the 90s. How many translations were there? How many books on Islam?
I mean, there were things available, but the problem was that not in Newcastle, where I was from.
Okay.
So Newcastle, where I was from, we have officially, according to the statistics, there are supposed to be 13 masajid. And it's a pretty reasonably big city. If I'm not mistaken, it's around the 10th largest, somewhere around that in the UK. 13 masajid, of which that includes anything that could be called a masjid from the most remote, The reality of it is probably maybe half of that in terms of active at that time. A couple of university prayer halls, a big masjid in a certain area where the Muslims were, maybe another couple here and there. We're not talking about a very well-established place, and no marakis or madaris, no madrasa and no marakis to learn the religion at all.
Fast forward to 2022. How does Newcastle?
It's better. It's definitely better. It's still very much in its infancy as it relates to what we would call sort of structured seeking knowledge. But yeah, it has improved. It has improved. It has improved.
So Sheikh, then you became a Muslim, alhamdulillah. You went through different stages. Everybody's trying to, capture you, like call you to their masjid or their markaz. I have an interesting question for you. Usually, when a brother becomes Muslim, right, he becomes Abu Ahmad al-Britani or Abu. Did you go through because I'm looking at your name, Sheikh Muhammad Humble, right? So definitely in our context, one of the first things they tell the brother when he accepts Islam, what name are you going to choose?
Yeah, that is true. We had that.
Okay.
I mean, for me, yeah, for sure. Once I had accepted Islam, the sort of cold reality really hit me, and it was really hard. That was probably harder in my sort of me looking back now. It was harder for me after I accepted Islam because I was just like, okay, this is not how Islam, like I read Islam is all one, and the Quran and the Sunnah, and and I'm just like, I'm not seeing any Quran and Sunnah here, not left or right. And I'm really confused because I don't have the ability to evaluate this, right? I don't have the ability to say these guys are wrong or right. I'm just looking and seeing this picture that I'm looking at now is not what I was told about Islam. Like it just nowhere near. So it really threw me, and it really made me, I wouldn't say it made me doubt, but it made me really uncomfortable. And I think I went through a load of different groups. UK has pretty much a branch of everything that has ever existed. In terms of different groups and beliefs and subgroups and whatever. Newcastle isn't as bad as some places, but like there were enough.
Like Birmingham, Sheriff. Sheikh, but I mean, in this everythingness, right? As Muslims, how do we deal with differences?
So Sheikh, I'll tell you what happened to me. I'll tell you how I kind of got over it. I actually went to London and I actually visited a very well-known, like large masjid. And that was just, I mean, it wasn't something I planned. I was going for a university interview. I just happened to kind of drop by and I thought, oh, wow, it's a huge masjid, and let me have a pop in and see. And I'm sure I didn't look like a Muslim should look, right?
Okay.
There was no beard. I'm sure the clothing was not appropriate. I'm sure it was like, I mean, I was going for university interviews, so it couldn't have been that bad, but it was not like, I wouldn't have looked at all like
Your typical
like a Muslim at all.
Yeah.
So I walked into the masjid and this old, man, old
immigrant
sheikh,
uncle. Is it immigrant uncle?
no, he was from Jordan,
Okay.
and he was one of the mashayikh, and he actually came to me and said to me that, could I ask you a question? Like, he through a translator, like, are you a Muslim? Because obviously I didn't look like a Muslim, and I'm wandering around the masjid like, what is this place? Like what? We hadn't seen a big masjid. We hadn't seen a big purpose-built masjid. So you have like a big bookstore, you have like a big foyer, you have like, and I'm sort of like looking all,
And you're praying in Newcastle, like in a room.
And he, so he comes and asks me, and I said, yeah, I'm a new Muslim, but and he said, why don't you come? And he sat me down, and he had some translators. And honestly, I just said to him, look, I'm confused. I'll be honest with you. I do believe in Islam. I have no doubt in it, but I'm just not, I'm not even sure what the next step is. And I'm not sure what all of these different things are, groups, beliefs, and whatever. And he really just gave me some really, really simple advice. He didn't come into this whole, like, I'm from this group and this is what he just literally said to me about holding on to the Quran and the Sunnah. And he actually gave me some reading material. And among that reading material, I came across the hadith of Al-Irbad ibn Sariyah, radiyallahu anhu. And that hadith changed my life. I'll be honest with you. It completely changed my life because of one single thing. I realized that this situation the Muslims were in at that time was prophesized. It's going, the Prophet said, فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. You live a long time, you are going to see the Muslims break up into so much different opinions and different ikhtilaf and everything. And that just settled my heart. I didn't need anything after that. I was like, okay, so now I know this is something that's supposed to happen. And it was decreed by Allah to happen like that. It's not good, it's not beloved, but you know what it is?
It is what it is.
It is what it is, and there's a solution. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي, stick to my sunnah. And from then, I never looked back. Basically, I had a long journey to practicing properly. I had a long journey to learning Islam properly. But from that point, I never felt that feeling of being lost like I felt at that before that time. I was like, right, this is it, and it was consistent with what I had read about Islam prior to becoming a Muslim, that Islam is all about, you believe in the scripture, you believe in the prophets, we didn't get anything about you joined this group and that one, like it was consistent with what I'd got. And then I met with some brothers I'd known in school, and those brothers were of a very similar mindset. And they were like, yeah, our shuyukh in this city are also telling us. And I was like, right, this is all coming together now. Like, I've got friends who are telling me things, who are starting to learn Islam, starting to memorize Quran, starting to study hadith. I've now got, some literature which is well written, good translation. I've got some tapes. I mean, I'm sure these kids are like, look at this. They're like, what's a tape? Actually, Google it. Google what a cassette is. Google 2 holes. Two holes. And you see, what do they do with that? They're like, you put your finger in it. Like, anyway. And tapes, yeah.
Okay, sure. So fast forward to Madina. How long after that?
So I would have been, when I started this journey, I would have been 17, going on 18. And I think it probably took me a good year to really start practicing, in the sense of just get everything in the right order for myself and actually really commit to it. And practicing Islam, it requires commitment, right? At some point, it requires you to say, you know what it is? I am going to get up for Fajr, and I am going to take these things seriously, and I am going to pray 5 times a day, no matter what else happens. And that commitment probably took me a better part of a year. So let's say, between 18 and 19, I'm really guessing, because I was so young at that time. I actually never kept a diary. So I'm very vague, but let's say 18 to 19 before I started practicing a little properly. And then, of course, I'm a revert. I'm the only, it's not fair to say the only revert, because that's not even true, but I don't know any other revert in the city at that time. And I'm sure there were, but I just didn't know.
It wasn't a network. There wasn't like,
I didn't know anyone. And I still don't know of anyone at that time, except one who was said to have moved away, accepted Islam and moved away.
Okay.
I mean, we're sure there's many, but
Yeah.
that's what we like. You live in a place where, as far as you can see, you're the only revert. And people said to me, look, you know what it is? You should study Islam. And I was like, yeah, I want to study Islam. So
Wait, no.
where? And, you know, someone said to me, look, why don't you think about Medina? And I was like, okay, you know, the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that in itself is you know, it just to live there is just a dream, you know? And then to live there on a scholarship and someone is taking care of your living expenses and your ticket. And I was like, right, where do I sign up? And I didn't until I got a phone call. And I remember so distinctly, I remember what I was doing. I remember that I was with some of the young kids helping out in the madrasa where they were teaching Quran. And I didn't know much Quran, but we just sort of helping out, you know, like some of the letters and things like that, and just pointing at the letters for the kids to practice and things. I remember getting a call, and I remember a brother said to me, you want to go to Hajj? I was like, yeah, I want to go to Hajj, but the bank balance doesn't want to take me. So he said, okay, how about if you could go to Hajj for free? I was like, yeah, definitely sounds amazing. So he said, look, there are, you know, some people who, various princes and dignitaries and whatever pay for their Hajj every year. Would you like to go? I was like, yeah, would love to. So it was a very diverse group. Alhamdulillah, we went. And while I'm going, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to Hajj. I'm going to end up in Medina, right? So let's just take my paperwork. And I didn't know how to fill it in someone. Even those, I mean, look, it's still not the best application process in the world.
Yeah.
I had a part to play in that. I used to work in the admin department, and I did somewhat help with the website translation.
Okay.
It is like a little bit,
now,
it's a little bit better, but it wasn't amazingly easy. But the brothers, you know, one of the imams in Birmingham, Allah bless him, Shaykh as well, he's a very, very good friend of mine. He filled in my, you know, some of my paperwork for me, but I had a problem. I didn't have any tazkiyah, right? So no reference. And you needed two, and you know, I didn't have one. I managed to kind of convince one of the ex-graduates or one of the graduates who knew me sort of to give me something. But in the end, we had a Saudi sheikh who used to come to Newcastle at that time. So now the city's somewhat developed, and we got a visiting sheikh. And I asked the sheikh, and I was so sure he was going to say yes, right? And he said, no.
I don't know you.
He said to me, no. He said, you're not ready. He said, you don't know Arabic. You're not making any effort to attend durus and halaqat. You're not even willing to go to the city that is, you know, 50 miles away. Not willing, but you're not doing it, you know, like, so what shall I write for you? You know, like, so I was like, okay, that's not how it works. No, Sheikh, that's not, Sheikh Afwan, yani, that's not how it works, right? You know, I come to ask for a tazkiyah, you give me one. Like, what is this? You know, like, no. Like, so the translator is like, and I'm hearing the Sheikh's like, la. And I'm looking at the translator, like, tell me there's another meaning of the word la, right? It's like, Sheikh says, no. I'm like, okay, all right. So anyways, in the end, I went to Medina and I actually phoned the Sheikh and I said, Sheikh, you know what it is? I know you said no, but of course I'm not speaking to him. There's brothers translate. And I said, Sheikh, I know you said no, but Sheikh, I'm here right now standing in front of the university. I'm really, really asking you for the sake of Allah to reconsider. He said, fine, tomorrow morning, come. There's a teacher will meet you and he will help you out. And that teacher actually wrote a tazkiyah for me. Inshallah. He met me and I guess he thought that, you know, going to Medina qualifies in terms of the, you know, whole, you're not going to the next city.
Yes.
Actually,
you made that effort. You put the.
He was like, fine, you can, you know, and I really appreciate what he did. I really do. I really feel that he was completely right. Even I wasn't even ready when I went, but I mean, I really appreciate now that what he was saying is that if you want to study Islam, you start with what's available to you locally, and then you move outwards. And of course, if a big opportunity comes along, you take it with both hands. But you the whole point is to start with the people that are local to you and the people that you have easy access to and speak your language and make it easy for you. And then you go, out, expand one step by another, you know, like that's what you do.
So Sheikh, you eventually graduated from Madina University. Just a quick question. Because you are Arabic, how did you find the learning of the Arabic language and the memorization of Quran when you started in Madina University?
So Arabic, I didn't find difficult. Okay. And I think the reason is I've always loved languages. I did my A-levels in French and Spanish. I barely speak it now, but like I really never found languages difficult at all. And I loved Arabic so much. So yeah, Arabic, no problem. Quran, my problem is I'm mildly dyslexic.
Okay.
So this is why whenever you see me give lectures, especially if I'm going over a hadith that I haven't read for a while, you'll hear me going, like, I'm not very dyslexic, but just enough to make it like slightly hard to, like slightly hard to read. So what I used to do is I used to have to memorize more than the other students did. So if you remember in the Ma'had, in the Institute of Arabic Language, you're memorizing Juz' Amma, right? At the same time, you're reading 5 ajza, you're reading up to Surah Al-Dhariyat, something like that. I had to memorize up to Surah Al-Dhariyat just to get away from the fact that I couldn't really read very well.
Okay.
So while the students were all like, he's like, read this surah. You know, I remember in the exam, he gave me sort of Tur, and he said, read the surah. And I'm thinking, I can't read the surah. I don't know how to read. But all this time I'm faking it by just I wouldn't say I'm memorizing it like perfectly, but I'm just memorizing it that the reading becomes like easy for me.
Flow, yeah.
So after that, you realize that memorization is important.
Sure. So obviously you're using audio.
Yeah.
So what was your qari of choice back then?
I'm supposed to say Al-Husari, right?
No.
No, I'm not. I'm only going to say Al-Husari for the reason that that's what I would advise people not to listen to the qari whose voice you like.
Yes.
There's some beautiful qurra, amazing voice, but I would honestly advise them to listen to a qari that you can learn from. And not only Al-Husari, there are others, but like someone who...
The generic answer from Mashaykh, and this is across Madaris, Minshawi and Husari.
That's it. But I mean, I would like to say I did that, right? But I didn't.
So who did you listen to? I'm not saying you advise people to listen, but
no. I'm only like, I used to listen to a lot of different qurra. I used to like Mishari Rashid a lot. I used to listen to those people who were around at that time, you know, Sa'id al-Ghamidi.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Like
this is before Bandar Balila and Maher Mu'ayqili.
Yeah, before then. So I used to sort of, you know, like, but the recitation is beautiful, but it's just not easy for you to take the ahkam of tajweed
then you go to
from them, you know, like it's not that they have an issue in their recitation, it's just that you can't really extract like a sort of the right rules and everything from. Whereas when you listen to someone like Al-Husari, even if you copy like 20% of what he does, you still sound like you still sound like you know what you're doing.
I think it's like back then also, Sheikh, we had cassettes of certain mashayikh, the voice highly learned, like top mashayikh, the voice is a bit gruffy, the recordings are bad, and the sheikh might use a little bit of Amiyah here and there, and so you know, it's not that there's something wrong with the sheikh, you're just not picking up what you're supposed to be picking up.
It's true.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go for it.
So now we come into the Ruqya story, Sheikh. So
okay.
Is this by choice, or sometimes you get yourself in a sticky situation, a slippery slope? You have to learn it because you have to deal with something right now. And like you mentioned in your talk last night, Sheikh, there's obviously different levels of learning it. So you refer to a Sheikh that you obviously consulted and actually, you know, learned. And this is also for me, what I understand of it, it's an ilm that there's some type of tajriba, there's some type of experience and khibra that goes into it. Yes, you have the Quran and the Sunnah, but there are people that's doing it every day. So obviously you need the expertise.
I think the way it started was I'd always been I have to say I'd always been interested in it, and you know, like
in the supernatural in general.
I no, not so much before Islam.
Okay,
but after Islam, I was interested because remember I said how Islam made sense to me. So like I'm now going through all these things that never made sense to me, and like kind of presenting to see what does Islam say about it. So like to me, ghosts and you know the ghost of your dead grandfather, it never made sense to me, but I wanted to know what does Islam say about it. So because I was always saying, I know Islam's got the truth for everything, so let's see what does Islam say. So I was always interested. I remember, you know, when you go to any university and you start buying books in Arabic that you can't read. Yeah, we all did it, right?
Yeah, you pile it up.
We
only to see that taba is not a good one. You have to rebuy it.
So I started buying books on Ruqya even when I went to Hajj. I actually started buying books on Ruqya just out of interest. I said to the translators to me, look, I'd like to select a few books. I am, inshallah, going to learn Arabic. So could you select me a few books on Ruqya? And we got, you know, a few books on that. After that, what happened was a friend of mine, his sister became very, very unwell. And he was a very close friend of mine since back in the school days. And he said to me, look, you know, you're in Islamic university. We think maybe this could be something not normal. What can you do? Or what can you advise? And I basically said, I have no idea. I really don't. I've got books, but I'm not still yet at the stage where I can read about it. And I've heard, but I really don't know. But let me go back to Medina. So it was holidays. And let me actually see. Well, I can't remember, it might have even been a phone call. And I said, let me just consult some of the students of knowledge in Medina and ask them if they can direct me to some of the mashayikh. And I think, you know, when you're in Saudi or any place where there's a big tradition of seeking knowledge, it's a little difficult to get access to shuyukh, you know?
Yes.
So one of the things you do is you go to like more senior students who go to the sheikh, sort of go take you to the sheikh, you know? So I did that, and I had a very, very beloved brother who since did his doctorate in tafsir. It was amazing, wallahi, and he helped me so much, Shaykh Abdul Basit, Allah yahfadhah. And he basically used to kind of take me under his wing and kind of, you know, help me out with things, you know, buying books and things. And I said to him, Sheikh, look, this is what I'm going through. And, you know, the brothers asked me, and Sheikh, I've got no clue, you know, where do I go? He said, look, the mushrif of my risala in tafsir, the sheikh who is looking after who is supervising my thesis, is an expert in ruqya. And I can ask him if he would be willing to meet with you, and I can take you to him. And I was like, okay, amazing. And this is Sheikh Ali bin Ghazi al-Tuwaijiri. So he says to me, look, I'll take you to the sheikh if you want. I was like, definitely. So I went to the sheikh. Sheikh was absolutely amazing. And he's such a lovely person and so welcoming. We sat in his house. He explained a lot of things to me, and he listened to me, and he said, I remember him saying to me that, look, if you want to do ruqya, there's certain things you're going to need. And he didn't bring me all of the things. He just gave me like 3 things. He said, the first thing is that your belief, your aqeedah is correct. He said, the second thing is that you can recite the Quran reasonably. He didn't say you have to be, you know, sorry, but, you know, you have to be able to recite the Quran. And he said, you can have sabr upon the difficulties that you face while you're doing this. And he said, if you feel that's you, then I would suggest that you should go back and read upon this sister. But he said, before you go, he had just finished writing his copy of Al-Istishfa bil-Quran al-Kareem. And before it was printed, he gave me a copy. He said, because Shaykh Abdul Basit was writing it for him, corrected the footnotes and everything, you know, like all that stuff. So he said to him, give him a copy. Before it was printed, he said, just email him the copy. Give him a copy. And he said, go through it completely, and you'll find, inshallah, in there everything that you need. And wallah, Sheikh, what he said was completely true. It is still, I believe, the best summarized book on the topic of ruqya by far. For me personally, I do love Fath al-Haqq al-Mubin. It's very, very good. But to me, it is this Al-Istishfa bil-Quran al-Kareem for its attachment to the adillah and bringing evidences and actually showing you what the Prophet ﷺ actually did instead of what people recommend for you to do. Well, I don't think there's any other book like it in that summarized form, you know, in so few number of pages. So I took the book, I tried my best. And I remember the Sheikh said, take my phone number, and whenever you're finding it tough, just give me a call. I must have made the Sheikh, Allah forgive me, I really give him Sheikh a hard time, wallahi. Sheikh, I'm reading, and the jinn is doing this. Sheikh, and every time the Sheikh would just say, carry on reading, you know, no, read, carry on, be patient, carry on, no problem, carry on. And that was all the Sheikh used to say to me, really, you know, like, just carry on and be patient. No problem. Just carry. What are you doing? Okay, you're doing this. No problem. Just carry on and be patient. And after a while, I kind of realized that was all that was needed. The case, I'm not going to say to you it was resolved to my satisfaction. You know, قدر الله وما شاء فعل. But it was the beginning of a journey, you know, and the journey is ongoing. You know, a journey for seeking knowledge. I really find it to be a really, really good way of connecting with people for the purpose of calling them to the right way of practicing Islam. I find that people are really willing to just engage with you. People who otherwise wouldn't be willing to engage with you will come sit, talk to you about it, listen to you about it. So I find it a really, really good way of connecting with people. So I love it. And Now things have changed a little. I'm more into sort of trying to make sure that I sort of download whatever I've picked up from those mashayikh and kind of like
Shit.
bring it into some sort of form in English that I can share with people. So my Ruqya course is what I am trying to do at the moment. I'd love to make it a book in the end, but at the moment, like it's just a matter of just trying to like, you just pick up, you're right. I mean, absolutely, you're complete right. There's such a big aspect of it is experience, but I just have one thing that I put with that, and that is that experience has to be grounded in the Kitab and the Sunnah.
Of course.
And that's where I think you have a problem, because if you look at a lot of Ruqya books, there's experience, but it's not
Devoid of.
it's not at all grounded in the Quran and the Sunnah at all. It's just, I tried this and it worked.
Yeah.
And this is a really tough question about where Ruqya goes back to. Does it go back to ibadah, or does it go back to tib? Does it go back to the issue of medicine? But to me, the practice of Ruqya itself, the actual method of Ruqya goes back to the ibadah. And it's as close to being tawqifiyya as possible. But the words you choose, the way, you know, the surah you choose to recite, the ayat you choose to recite, here there is some flexibility, and prophetic medicine, you know. But the issue is big. It's not a small issue. It's a big issue. You know.
Sure, but you mentioned the issue of it worked, and you look at I think it was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He found his wife wearing something, and she said that I was twitching, and then he said, you know, the genie, when you did that, the genie went away. So it's not always about it worked. Yeah, because like you mentioned, sometimes in desperation, people will go outside of the religion. Have you found people outside of Islam also coming to you?
Yeah, you do. You get non-Muslims will come, and that's a great dawah opportunity. And we know the permissibility from the many ahadith, include the hadith of Abi Sa'id and radiyallahu anhu and others, where they performed ruqya upon non-Muslims. So it can work. And people do, but a lot of times you just get Muslims that are lost. You know, people who are like, look, I've been to magicians, I've been to priests, I've been to churches. People even go to Hindu priests. People go to like witch doctors, like I'm talking about polytheistic witch doctors.
We've got many witch doctors in Cape Town.
That's a big, but I mean,
business in Cape Town.
I don't know if you stopped at we call it a robot at the traffic signal.
The Sheikh is going to Belleville to the Somali center.
Tomorrow.
That's a hot spot for them over there.
I mean, there's like guys that come from other African countries. They settle here and they open surgeries where they like offer you you can win the lottery, you can get your lost lover back, and you know, or you like be Shaykh Muhammad, whatever, lives in the graveyard. Why would anybody want to live in the graveyard?
You mentioned, what's this Sheikh's name that you mentioned?
Sheikh Tuwajri.
No, not Sheikh, not the
Sheikh Abdul Basit.
Sheikh mentioned the Sheikh that was part of the Hay'a that dealt with the Sahara and stuff.
Yeah, Sheikh Adil.
Sheikh Adil.
Yeah, Al-Muqbil, yeah.
Sheikh Adil Al-Muqbil. Okay.
Yeah, Sheikh was somebody I met quite a bit later on after I'd been doing Ruqya for a very long time. There's another story, you know, but Sheikh came to the UK and I met him up in Scotland. And I was good friends with the guys up in Scotland, and they allowed me to meet with the Sheikh and actually translate for him. But the Sheikh was doing his course in London, and that was a little more difficult because the brothers in London, you know, rightly so, without any complaint, they were being quite restrictive about who attended because they were concerned that it would just be swamped.
Yes.
So they actually wouldn't kind of let me in. But the Sheikh had already told me you can attend. So I'm like, look, Sheikh's told me. They're like, sorry, it doesn't matter. Sheikh's told you, but we've got a proper rule system here. You know, like there's an application. You had to have come and registered, and you had to have a seat. And Sheikh told you. So I managed to catch the Sheikh in the corridor. I'm like, Sheikh. Sheikh. I'm like, Sheikh, you told me, Sheikh, come on. Sheikh, you told me, please. So he actually basically was a little bit forceful and said, no, I told him, and they let me in. They almost didn't let the brother who was with me in. They were like, look, you can come in, but the Sheikh never promised him. So, but alhamdulillah, in the end, the Sheikh said, no, you're both coming because you came from far. We came from far. And, you know, like I said, it wasn't to blame the brothers. They actually had a lot of difficulty with a lot of people, and they didn't actually want people practicing Ruqya to be in the course. And the reason why is they thought people would use it as a tazkiyah. So they would be like, look, I've done the Sheikh's course and, you know, my Ruqya is the best. So when I explained to them that, look, I'm not that kind of person, and I'm not charging people, and I'm not, you know, they were like, okay, that's
that's what we want.
better.
This is the type of
That's
person.
better. And I just connected with Sheikh. He's absolutely lovely, amazing person. And I never saw anybody with that depth of knowledge on that
MashaAllah.
topic of magic and its causes and the way that the magicians, just from a lifetime of catching them. You know?
Just for the viewers. So the Sheikh that Sheikh Tam is referring to is Sheikh Adil Al-Muqbil. He is the head in Saudi Arabia.
The task force.
The task force, that's the term, yeah. He's the head of the task force that deals with magicians and with catching jinn and so forth.
Yeah, basically. So that was what he was doing sort of when I was, when I was there, or when I met him, he might have just finished his sort of being in that full time. But he had spent a lifetime basically in the Hayya, Hayyat al-Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar. And he was very big on that, not just jinn related. I mean, like generally, he was like very much like, you know, walking around telling people, "Akhi, you need to change this." But he's got a lovely personality, very nice. And he had said to me, you know, to come. I attended his course. It just blew me away. It was amazing, the course that he did. It's a very famous course. He's done it many times in Medina and stuff.
I checked him out online a few years back, but there's very little there's a few scattered videos online.
He has a long video called Kaid al-Sahir.
Okay.
And then he has another one called Kayfa Taksir al-Wathan, something like that. Like something like
I saw some videos and some real weird stuff, Sheikh, where they get, stuff out of the sea, written in the sea.
Yeah.
Bottles
So Sheikh, when he did this course about breaking the idols, something like that, the Sheikh actually had all those videos with him. So the only thing that I wish that we could do is to have them in higher quality now, because the quality is very low resolution now. But now I do have some high resolution
6K.
footage with the Sheikh. I went with the Sheikh, not quite 6K, but at least 1080p.
Yeah.
I went around with the Sheikh with a camcorder and we took some, relatively high quality footage, but still, a lifetime of catching them, a lifetime of exposing them. Like there's stuff in there that's just, golden, in terms of knowledge, what you get from it. So that added a different perspective to my ruqya, because remember, Sheikh Adil is not into ruqya at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, he loves it, affirms it and whatever, but he's not personally into it at all. If you tell him, Sheikh, I think I've been afflicted with sihr, he's going to say, right,
go to this world.
He's going to start, first thing you need to do is Qiyam al-Layl. Yeah. And you need to do dua before Fajr. And you need to make istighfar. And he used to say some few other points that he used to just make, look, tawbah, istighfar, and that's it. And that's all you need. And come back to me when you've made tawbah. He would he never used to say it to people, but he did used to give out the 7-day program, which I have now become quite well known for translating. Sheikh's 7-day program, which is the reading on the water and the oil. And he used to give that to people. So if people would come to him and say, Sheikh, I've got a problem, he would say, look, take this. He calls it al-ashfiya, the cures. So it's like reading on water, oil, and then using honey and black seed and all together.
Was it Sheikh Adil that mentioned the reciting Surah Baqarah thrice?
No, that's Sheikh Adil.
Sheikh mentioned last night, the Sheikh said, recite Surah Baqarah thrice. And I mean,
that's Sheikh Adil Tuwajri. I said to Sheikh, Wallah, kathir. Qal marratain. It's twice. I said, Sheikh, Allah is he's like, okay, one time then. So it just shows you the commitment that these people, Sheikh Ali has practiced ruqya for a very long time. I'm talking about in the trenches, people come into his house and he's doing ruqya on them. But still to be so attached to the sunnah after that, I really respect that. Somebody who has done day-to-day ruqya and practiced it and seen many, many cases resolved, and at the same time still tells you, go back to that hadith. Don't go past what you find in the hadith. And that is really, it's really powerful.
Yeah, but how taxing is that on the Raqee? We spoke this morning and I mentioned the Sheikh who might have, hung up his boots and said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. How taxing is it for the Raqee, day in, day out, dealing with these type of cases? I mean, a surgeon makes a cut, stitches up the patient and he goes home. But I mean, this goes home with you, with his baggage.
Yeah, I think... in terms of our mashayikh, the big concern is the time that it takes away from your seeking knowledge and teaching. But I think that what I believe the correct way of hanging up your boots is, I keep getting these premature reports of my demise. They come all the time. Like Muhammad Tim's quit Ruqya.
Oh, okay.
Muhammad Tim doesn't do Ruqya anymore. Muhammad Tim's given up on Ruqya. Muhammad Tim says Ruqya doesn't. All this stuff. But what I found to be the best way of dealing with this is that what you move into is you do actually move into more teaching people to do it, so that
you're handing a baton.
You can kind of hand it over to the next generation and in a better way. So one of the things that I quickly identified that for us in the UK, the number of people who are afflicted, the number of people who want ruqya, and the number of people who could potentially do ruqya, even if we took all of the tulab al-ilm and all of the qurra and turned them all into ruqa, to be honest with you, you would still be way, way short of the needed amount. And so what we started to look at is how do hospitals, how do hospitals work, right? If you look at hospitals with this kind of like pyramid system where you have like, you go in and you have like, okay, you get triage from a nurse, then, you'll get seen by a junior doctor. Then after that, you'll get seen by perhaps a more senior doctor, then perhaps by a specialist. And perhaps that specialist might have another specialist above who's highly. So I started to look at that and think, okay, this is more like what we kind of need to do.
That's what I meant when I said pyramid versus.
But I want to extend the pyramid downwards now even more. So we're not even talking about the nurse. What about the pharmacist? And then, okay, when we go below, what about the paracetamol you take at home? So now you actually have
a first aider.
In reality, you treat people, you treat medical issues at home. If you can't treat them at home, you go to the pharmacy. If the pharmacist can't deal with it, you go to
the GP.
If the GP can't deal with it, you go to the hospital and you see the nurse and then a junior doctor and then a senior doctor and then a specialist. And if we could have that kind of system in Ruqya, we might actually be able to manage with the large numbers of people. So what we do is try to teach people to just do it at home on themselves. Those people who don't manage, we train regular brothers who are not necessarily tullab al-ilm in the sense of formal studies and things, but they are, they love Ruqya and performing it. And then we have some tullab al-ilm who are more learned. Maybe their recitation is broader. They have more ability to recite. And then we have, some people who kind of taken a bit of a specialization in it. And that way you can seem to manage this kind of like volume of people. And also the fact is that the majority of people, even the GP, like the majority of people who will go to see the GP, most of them will not have a problem that the GP really needs to deal with, right? Like the GP will say, no, it's fine. You need to just take this medicine and go home. And that's true in Ruqya as well. Maybe 70, 80% of cases, you could say to the person, you know what it is? You just need to learn how to do it well at home. Go home, practice it on yourself. Shaykh Adil's 7-day program, do a little bit of ruqya on yourself, making dua and all that stuff. And then, from there, we can come back and look at the situation. And the more you get towards that, you find you have a lot of stuff you can give people. You can give people generic means of protection. You can give people the 7-day program, which is very easy to do. You can give people a simple ruqya at home program. Then you can start to have people who are somewhat trained, even if they are not necessarily qurra. And those people are, going out and helping out. And, you end up with something more manageable. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but it's improving. And
Inshallah.
It's, I don't know, it's not winning me that many favors among people who do ruqya for a living. They're not that thrilled. And it's definitely not winning me any favors among people who do ta'weez for a living.
Two controversial questions, inshallah.
Okay.
How do you respond to someone that denies position, the reality of position?
I've actually got a video on it, Sheikh. I've got a video on it that I made with Sheikh Abdurrahman Hassan.
Okay.
And we went over the adillah from the Quran and the Sunnah and that which the early generations agreed upon, affirming possession. But if I was going to give a really, really quick answer, I would actually say to the person, what makes you deny it? I want that person to give me your dalil that it doesn't exist. Because this is something that is well spoken about. It's present in even classical Arabic poetry, even pre-Islamic poetry, in Jahili poetry. It's present in the poetry of the Sahaba. It's present in the Quran. It's present in the Sunnah. And it's just generally like most people, it's even present in Judaism and Christianity. Like it's really like, so I would say to that person, okay, aside from all those things, why not? And I would say that their answer is going to be an answer that is pure logic and rhetoric. They're not going to be able to give me
An academic
an evidence-based answer.
Yeah, Quran and
So I
Sunnah.
say, okay, give me the ayah that says that jinn possession isn't true. So the only thing that they're going to bring is something like something to do with the issue of sultan. Okay,
Yeah.
لَيْسَ لَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ sultan.
Sultan.
And you don't have any authority over them. But there's a huge difference between authority and the ability to, for example, enter the body.
Yeah, yeah.
And this issue of sultan, like this is, there's a huge difference between those two things. So really, generally, I would say my first answer would be, explain to me why not. And most of the answers are not evidence-based. If there's an issue of the ayat that mentions sultan, we can talk about that. But generally speaking, most of the answers are not evidence-based. It just, it couldn't be true because if it was true, then this wouldn't be
Yeah.
like, it's
What I've come across is, so generally the verses of the Quran, they would say it's dhanni, it's dalala. So what that means is, it could have multiple interpretations, and you mentioned that example now. When it comes to the ahadith, it comes to the issue of, they bring up the issue of, because we have narrations where the Prophet ﷺ dealt with jinn possession.
Yeah.
They would bring the discussion of authenticity again.
But those ahadith, the thing here that I would put is that if we really want to get into it, are those ahadith not mutawatir al-ma'na? Are those ahadith, we're not talking about the same hadith coming from hundreds and hundreds, but if you take all of the ahadith that mention, really you're getting to the point where one of them you can claim is weak, two of them, but you're starting to get so many different reports of it. Plus it's something that people believe like they by default. Like it's like, so
Fitri.
it's a fitri thing, So I just think that it's also something that is easy to prove in front of your eyes. Like it's
like the sun in the middle of the day.
Like it's like kind of like, shall we prove the sun is in the sky? Like you can actually, quite easily see someone with symptoms that could not be explained any other way. They could not. So that's one. But
So
the video is much better. I mean, we
I'll check it out.
went through the points in a lot of detail. It was an AMAU hot seat.
Okay.
Is jinn possession real? I think it is.
Sheikh, two misconceptions.
Okay. Second question.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah,
That was more of a fundamental type of asl question, i'tiqadi or aqdi. The second question is an operational question in how people do it. So the issue that's very common in Cape Town is the jinn catching. The jinn catching? Is it that
the question was asked
Yeah.
last night.
Oh, okay. They asked it already. Okay, that's also, how do you explain? Okay, we have a certain, I don't believe in jinn catching. I feel that this is not the sunnah, but I would explain that to someone who comes up with that.
So there are a couple of ways to tackle this. One is actually a really deep question that we talked about whether ruqya, all practices in ruqya go back to medicine. In which case I can simply say anything that works and is not haram is permissible.
Okay, got it.
I don't believe that that's the case. And I actually think that the closest example people could understand is dua. Right? So the actual practices of dua, the times you make it and the whether you raise your hands or not, those things are restricted in the Sharia. As for what you make dua for, it's preferred to make dua with what the Prophet ﷺ said. But as long as you're not making dua for something haram, you do have a little flexibility. Hence the hadith, "Ardu alayya ruqakum," show me your words of ruqya. So that's one way of dealing with it. But even if we skip past that and we say that it's just it's medicine, you can do anything you want. I feel that there are a couple of red flags in it. The first one is the issue of any practice where it feels like you are using the jinn in order to achieve your goals in whatever way, using the Muslim jinn, using the jinn as a vessel, calling upon the jinn, inviting them, trapping, anything which gives you control over the jinn. Surely this first of all contradicts the dua of Sulaiman.
Yes.
To ask for a kingdom,
لا ينبغي لأحد من
لا ينبغي لأحد من بعدي. It's not befitting to anyone after me. Secondly, even the Prophet ﷺ was shy to tie the jinn upon the pillar of the masjid. And if it wasn't for the dua of my brother Sulaiman, I would have tied him in the masjid. That's another point. Not only that, but we see that it is, in reality, it's something that those people don't really understand what exactly is happening. And it opens them up to a lot of lies and misuse from the shaitan. For example, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. Now, how do you have any kind of tabayyin or tathabbut when you don't have any idea? For example, how do you know one jinn is not coming up and talking? Yeah, it's me again. No, it's another one. Yeah, you have opened a portal to the world and my name is now, like, how do you don't have any idea. You have no clue because this is ghaibun mahd. It's pure unseen. You have no clue what's going on. And then this idea of asking and then interacting with them, surely this comes under رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْض وَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَنَا الَّذِي أَجَّلْتَ لَنَا. We benefited from each other, the men and the jinn, and then we reached our place, our time that you have reported for us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts them into the fire. So I think all of these things together, at the least you can say about, at the minimum you can say, leave that which you doubt for that which you don't doubt.
I wanted to interject, and our time is up. Inshallah.
Oh, sorry.
So what you're saying is that Raqee can't see the jinni, because this is a misconception.
Not in the normal circumstances. There's a mas'ala. Can people see the jinn under any circumstances? Because of the ayah, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. So some of them said from this, you cannot see them under any circumstances, except if they take the human form or the form of an animal. But I came across more than one of the scholars of the past say that this is really something which is really something like makhraj al-ghalib. And it's something that is like, it is generally that it doesn't happen, but it doesn't exclude it ever happening to anybody. And I believe that was the view of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that, I think it's possible that people could have visions of things. Is this the reality of the jinn? Or we don't have any evidence for that, but people can have visions of things, people can see things, but then using the people who can see things for treatment is another big musibah.
Sheikh, you have to be at another venue. It was great having you here, alhamdulillah. A bit more than an hour.
Ask a few questions.
There are so many more questions, but I think we'll end off with closing remarks, inshallah ta'ala, to the people of Cape Town, South Africa, and whoever else watches our podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of closing remarks and maybe words of advice, wallahi, I've really found I've had an amazing time here, and I found there is so much potential here. There is so much in terms of facilities, in terms of a strong Muslim community, and there is certainly all of the ingredients necessary for us to take the da'wah here to another level. Alhamdulillah, a lot of graduates from various universities and people of knowledge. Alhamdulillah. I think what really is needed is for the regular people to really take advantage of that, to really commit themselves to seeking knowledge in Islam, even if it's not that they want to reach the level of a graduate or beyond that, but they want to reach a level of someone who really knows their religion and practices it properly. And I think if a person learns their religion and then practices what they know, that is a huge, huge part of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires from you. So those would be my words of advice.
Jazakallah, Shaykh, for sharing this time with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Inshallah. And we hope that Allah grants you a safe journey back home.
Ameen.
To be with your loved ones, inshallah. And always keep you protected, inshallah. Shaykh Ashik, you can close, inshallah.
We just would like to extend our thanks, inshallah, to Shaykh. Jazakumullah khair for Alhamdulillah, it's a great honor.
The honor is mine, Allah.
We've benefited much, and inshallah, I think we can benefit more. We would advise, inshallah, our listeners and those online, inshallah, if you're unable to attend the classes or the sessions that Shaykh has live, inshallah, in the masjid on site, then at least, inshallah, online. We are those classes.
The Taiba Institute.
Taiba Institute. Was it streaming on your personal?
They're on Taiba Institute, yeah.
Taiba Institute, inshallah. Facebook, YouTube, inshallah. Check out the lectures. Taking place tonight, inshallah. Tomorrow night, up until.
But by the time this is, it's.
Yeah.
No. I'm referring to the. Oh, yeah. I forgot. Sheikh, you could have told me something. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh, for your time. We hope, inshallah, you have benefited here. You have.
It's been amazing.
Alhamdulillah, the brothers. We never see these brothers, Alhamdulillah, but tonight we are seeing them. Nadeem, Riyaz, Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah feekum.
Feekum barakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
يا طالبا للعلم يرجو نفعه اسمع نصيحة ناصح معواني أخلص لربك في أمورك كلها فالمخلصون هم أولو العرفان